Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, well, it's such an honor and a privilege to have you on for Banging Rocks TV, Beverly. I love getting a chance to talk. It's been a long time since we last have. So
Hmm.
maybe to start, we can just talk a little bit about you can tell folks a bit about who you are and what you do. I know there's a lot of different hats that you wear.
Yeah. Wow. So I do a lot of different things. If I had to kind of condense it, I am essentially a storyteller, right? I tell stories. So I am primarily a writer. I do nonfiction, I do fiction, um, I do scripts. I've done like screenplays, stage plays, and in about maybe how long has it been now? About 6 years ago, I began to officially get into game development. And for a very long time, I had been wanting to um, merge game development with my storytelling.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know what, sorry, I live in Siren Central. So if you're probably going to hear sirens once in a
Oh,
while.
good.
Um, I didn't know what that would look like because I didn't really know anything about game development. Like I didn't know that people, like when I was a kid, um, I played games, and this is when games first emerged as like a an art form on a commercial level, right?
Yeah.
I had a ColecoVision, and my mom let me have one game, which was Donkey Kong, and I was allowed to play it like 15 minutes a week or something like that. And then there was there was a game arcade. There were game arcades emerged like in the 80s, right? And so
Yeah.
my grandmother would give us like there would be me and like three cousins, and my grandmother would give us like four quarters so we could go and each of us had a quarter to play, right? So but I really looked forward to my, session to be able to play games. But that was it. Like there was no information out there about Donkey Kong is your favorite. Anisha. Yeah, Donkey Kong is awesome. So there was no information out there about, how to develop games or what is a game development? None of that. There was no internet or anything like that. And at the time, I just wasn't thinking that this is a possibility, right? So fast forward, I'm doing my thing. And I think like maybe probably like 2010-ish, I began to think I want to develop games like in a conscious level. Like
Yeah.
I want to develop games. Like this is something I want to do. And if I can do this, I don't know how that I don't know how I do this. Like what, I didn't even know like the right questions to ask, right? To get the information. It's like that,
Yeah.
we just don't even know where to begin. And and then I want to say like I said, in 2014, I began to really get serious, right? I actually took a job as a game tester so that I could learn everything that I could about games and get paid to do it. So I
Yeah.
played in this period probably, I mean, hundreds of games, you know, um, for thousands of hours. It was like insane because it was a it was a part-time job, but I would like work it. Since I work for myself, I could work during the week when I wanted. And then I
Right.
worked every weekend. So every
Yeah.
weekend I would work, and they were always looking for people to work overtime. And so that's what I did. And so I would go out to Redmond like every weekend. Sometimes I would be down there, testing games until late, 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, So, and I would study the games and like kind of pick them apart and figure out like what made them work. And then I began to like take on this kind of like academic, almost like putting together my own coursework where I began to learn, teach myself about games, specifically narrative driven games. I was very much interested in, but also I wanted the game feature. I wanted games like where you have, you're playing, right? As opposed to just like this visual novel type thing, right?
Yeah.
However, I can see the visual novel merged with the game, right? Like that's where my mind's going. My mind is still going. My mind is still like all this is still in process. And so then in like, gosh, was that 2000? I want to say it was 2017. Oh, no, it was 2018. It was 2018, I think, or something like that, either 17, 18. I was working and there was the design, I think it was the design festival was having some events and they were having something on VR. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to go check this out because VR is another thing that I've fantasized about for a very long time since like the 90s. And I like literally would, anytime I saw an article about VR, I just had to read it. And then I would have this whole like dreamlike state of like, oh my God, I wonder what that would be like. And I can't wait. I want to check it out. And I want to develop for that. And I didn't have the word develop at the time, but it was like, I want to make that. I don't know how it would happen, but it was just kind of like a fantasy. And so in 2017, 2018, I ended up going to this event that was put on by the Design Festival in partnership with some other folks. And that's when I met Ricardo Parker from Kronos Global Academy, Booty and Diana from 6R, and David Harris, who used to be a startup advocate at the City of Seattle's Office of Economic Development.
Okay.
And they had a program called Future Founders, and they had brought in a lot of young people in their 20s who were part of this first cohort of people who were going to be taught how to develop for VR. Well, they were introducing these folks and I heard about it and I was like, okay, wait, how do I get involved with this? How do I get involved with this? Like, I need to be a part of this. And at the time, at the time I didn't have like a lot of money. I had less money than I have now. And so I was like, I can't afford any of these classes because Kronos Global Academy was, they had classes, but the classes were like really expensive,
Right.
And then they had this program, which was free. Make a long story short, I was showing them everything. I'm kind of skipping over stuff because before that, I had begun actually developing stuff, right? Like I began developing games, right? So once I started working with as a game tester, maybe about a year into that, I began developing games with other people and by myself. Like little video games that no one has, like I don't have on my website because they're like not. You know, they're just like me learning, right?
Yeah.
And so that went on for years, right? Like, and I got involved with the global game jam. Gosh, uh, Tim Collins was someone I met, and all those folks over there. Matter of fact, my game Rent Hike
Yeah, well,
was
yeah.
something I began. Yeah, I began developing before I met 6R and all those folks. So I
Oh,
had,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So yes, you got so global game jam. That was 2017. So that had, but this was a game jam that was specifically, it was called Social Justice Game Jam. And I had gone there because I had been working on Rent Hike for quite some time, and I don't remember the time frame, but it had to have been at least a year. And I went down there and I started working with some folks, and we actually put together a prototype of my game. So by the time I met Booty and Ricardo and David and Diana, I was about, I want to say, a good 3 or 4 years into my journey, right? And I had already begun developing games, in-person games, right? Where people, like interactive games that were designed to create conversations.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I ended up meeting them, and this had to have been 2018 because I think I got involved with them after I created my game, Economic Utopias and Dystopias, which I put on here in Seattle with a big group of people. And anyway, long story short, because I'm like going nonstop,
It's
and
great.
I
It's
know we
great.
only, um, I get there and I'm like, oh my God, how do I get involved? And Ricardo had someone call me, and I don't remember this person's name, but he was like, Ricardo said, come down to the office tomorrow. And I was like, well, I don't have any money, like, no, just show up tomorrow, just show up. So I show up, and they're like, we want you to be part of the cohort. We have a space. There was a space, and even though I didn't, fit the demographics, they were like, we think that you would be a good person to be a mentor and to help, lead the project, because we had to actually develop a project and, you know, teach share the knowledge that I had already acquired from like a lifetime of just working. Because at that point I had been working as a full-time writer for quite some time,
Yeah.
and I've been training as a writer since I was 14 years old. Really
Okay.
before then, I began working professionally at 14. So I started working for a newspaper at 14. So I've been writing for a very long time. And I just forgot, we were supposed to read from my piece. You asked me to read from my piece, and I
Oh no,
totally
that's okay.
forgot.
I was gonna bring that up in a little bit. So yeah, no
Oh,
worries.
okay, okay. And so anyway, I was like, yes. So I ended up doing that, and I learned so much. Pete at Kronos Global Academy, I don't think he works from Kronos anymore, but he was an excellent teacher. He got us started. And then the folks at Floodgate Academy, Devaris, he taught us C#. So Pete like showed us Unity and Blender and all the different tools that we could use to create VR, and also introduced us to C#. And then at Floodgate Academy, we delved into basically object-oriented programming so that we could understand the fundamentals, which really I'm incredibly grateful for, because by understanding that, I can like look at JavaScript, right, like, and understand it, right, or figure it out,
Yeah.
like any object-oriented programming language, for me, it's been easier to figure out because it's the same concept. It's, and
Yeah.
so that was an incredible experience. We developed an application for Rainier Beach Action Coalition, which is a nonprofit in South Seattle that is developing like a food, a like a food system with like urban gardens, with places where you can process food, with places you can sell food, so that people can create an ecosystem where they can be in the food industry, but have like this ecosystem where they can produce food products from,
Right.
the beginning all the way to the end, right? Whatever
Right.
that product looks like, right? So
Yeah.
we develop an app to like show this concept and to visualize it, where people could put on the headset and, so it was me, it was Eduardo, there were a whole bunch of folks, there were like 5 of us. And okay, that's not a whole bunch, but it was a
It's a
team,
good
right?
bunch.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, so we're all developing this thing together, and then we presented it, right? And ever since then, they just couldn't stop me. I've just been going nonstop, doing my thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm at this place right now where I'm experimenting. I have like lots of experiments with doing what I want to do with VR,
Yeah.
right? And I want to do something different. And that's like in the germination phase inside of me, right? Um, and then also, I didn't mention this. After I graduated from Future Founders, and um, I was actually invited by Nancy Chang to interview, to actually teach what I had learned to young people. And so I've been doing that for 3 years now.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that with Arts Core, and it's been incredible. Our students' projects look incredible. We've had, and I got to send you some information on one of my students. They finally sent me that info that you asked for. Remember, I told you they're looking for
Yeah.
internships,
Yeah.
but you know, it's been an incredible journey because I'm learning as they're learning, and I'm able to share that knowledge, and they're able to
Yeah.
share their knowledge with me. Right?
Hmm.
It's been amazing. And a matter of fact, next week, the week after next, actually, I am going to be teaching a week-long session on story games with teens here in Seattle. So
Nice.
that's going to be a lot of fun. Because I know story and I know games. So
That's right.
yeah, so
Right at your
it's going to
sweet
be a lot
spot
of
of,
fun.
yeah.
That
Nice.
is definitely my sweet spot. Yes, yes.
Amazing. I mean, one of the things that struck me right away when we first met at the game jam down in Seattle was, the environment in those, like, it's chaos, and there's just everyone's kind of zooming around and zipping around, and you just have such presence. And so it was like this
Mm.
still rock in the rapid river of all of this stuff going on. And like you could see, like, you have a I, for me at least, you have a lot of weight that's there in terms of, like,
Mm.
you can see the gears turning, and like something really cool is going on there. I want to find out more about that. And so we got to talking, and one of the things that just it shows from your expertise in both that game world and in that storytelling world is your ability to, like, cut down to the purest, like, essentials of what it is you're trying to get across, and then just
Yeah,
have that come straight from the heart, and really in a way that is easy
right,
for that to go straight from your heart right to the heart of your audience. um,
right.
and
Yes.
and within that, you do a lot of neat stuff around, kind of that power of looking forward. And when we give a compelling vision of what can be, that helps people strive for that. As an example of that, I was just reading today the piece that you had put together for Reimagine Seattle. And if you're up for it, I'd
Yes,
love to have
yes.
you give a little sample of that with kind of the end piece of that.
Sure, absolutely. Let me pull that up. Let's see here. Okay, this is this project. So I feel like I should give a little bit of context here. I
Yeah.
served for 2 years on the Renters Commission, on Seattle's Renters Commission, and we were the first. We were the first cohort for the Renters Commission. It was a brand new idea, and because 51% of Seattle's residents are renters, and Sam Reed was the photographer who took pictures of us, to kind of put us into, I guess, I don't know, into the archives, right? And he invited me to be a part of this project that he was doing with the city of Seattle. So this is how this came about. And when I first began this project, and I should probably tell folks where they can find it. It's on frontpageseattle.gov. You can just put in Reimagine Seattle, Beverly Aarons.
And we'll put a link on the YouTube
Oh,
description.
you'll put a link. Okay. And so when I began working on this project, I was thinking really, really big. And then I was like, it's really about the little things, right? It's about the little things that no one really thinks about. And so I ended up writing about the fountain in my neighborhood that has been severely neglected. So this is the last paragraph of, I think it's like 1,600 words of this piece where I talk about the future of this fountain, Prefontaine fountain, which was actually established by this priest who was very much committed to Seattle and had bequeathed, which was quite a lot of money at that time. I think it was like $3,000. The number is inside the article. I don't remember offhand. So here we go. Let me get a little drink. I have a vision. There's a girl, a toddler, maybe 2 or 3 years old. She scampers to the edge of the fountain and points. She's never seen anything so fascinating. Colorful koi glide through the pristine water, and the Art Deco tiles glimmer beneath them. The gentle whine of a violin permeates the air. There's a busker tucked in a corner. He leans against the stone ledge and gently brushes his bow across the violin strings. Workers sporting airy suits drop cash into his open case. It's a profitable day. A group of teenagers perch on a bench. They gossip and flirt while eating ice cream. It's a hot summer weekend. The tourist takes a selfie. They want to remember visiting Seattle's oldest fountain, and they're impressed that it's so well taken care of. The weekend rush of tourists emerges from Pioneer Square Station. A historical reenactor waits for them near the fountain. He will tell the story of Seattle's oldest fountain, and most importantly, the story of its people, its ancestors.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And I just,
Welcome.
so many times you weave these visions with your words that leave me feeling like I want to go to there. Like that's where I want to be. You were
Yes,
talking
yes.
before about how sort of your vision for what you want to do with VR and the kind of stories that you want to be telling is germinating. Where are you at with that? What are the
Yes.
kind of things that you're most excited about right now?
I think what I'm most excited about at this moment is, well, actually, I'm kind of excited about an exploration of the present. I've been doing a lot of interviews with people who are just incredible. I'm interviewing these people who are doing incredible things here in Seattle and in their life in general. And I write these articles, but this is journalism. Like, you have to like leave out a lot of things, right? You have to choose what you're going to focus on. And I would love to take some of their stories and put them into VR.
Yeah.
And that's actually what's been on my mind for a while. And I know a lot of my work and a lot of my focus is on the future, but also on the present, because I think the present creates the future. There is no future, right? Like, we create the future now by what we're doing. Like, if the actions that you're taking right now are the seeds of the future, and if you don't plant them, you're not going to get the future that you're dreaming about. So there's something inside my heart that's making me want to take those stories and put them into a VR experience so that people can be inspired by that and know that this is real. You know, these people are real. They're here. They're right now in this moment, right? Like, they exist. And I want them to hear their words and see what they're doing. Like, I don't know how, like, I'm, it's still like, I feel like you and I got to do some stuff. And I know we're both, we keep saying that, like, and, you know, it's just in my mind, right? Like, that's where it is. And so there's that. I also have been playing around with smaller scale VR experiences, one room experiences that focus on sound. You know, voices, you know, dialogue, voice or narration, or like people talking. Like, I don't know, like, I'm still figuring it out, but like, maybe you're having a conversation with someone over the phone, right? And the response, the game loop includes these like pre-recorded responses depending on what you say, right? And you will get these different response. Like, I don't know. There's like, I have so much stuff that I've just like written out on paper that are like concepts and that I've kind of played with, like prototyped in Unity, right? But I'm not putting it up because it's not, you know, it's like whatever. It's just my experiments. And so that's one thing, you know, because it's just me, right? Like, I don't have like a team of people. And I kind of feel like, you know, I have people that I can reach out to you. Like, you know, I can reach out to you and say, hey, do you want to work on this project? Or I can reach out to Booty, or I can reach out to these different folks. And because my vision is not to like run a VR studio, right? Like, my vision, I'm more project based. Like, I want to do these projects, right? And I want to operate in the VR realm, but that's one aspect of what I'm doing, right? And so that's another thing, but definitely kind of one room, small scale environments. And I kind of feel like those constraints force you to get very creative. When we were at Connect, Oculus Connect, remember, I don't think you weren't in line with me. I was waiting in line. This was like the last day for this game. It was like a World War II game or something like that. And you're like, it's VR. And so I finally got in, like, after probably like 4 hours, because I'm crazy like that. I was just like, I'm gonna just stand here because this game looks so cool. So I get in and I'm in this room where you're like upstairs in this like old apartment and everything's, it's definitely immersive. Hey, this is this time period, right? 1940s or whatever. And I'm just like looking around, and at one point this plane comes by my window, and I look out, and there are all these, and I look up, and there are all these planes coming over. And I thought, that's it. This is just one room. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. And then you have the outside, and it's completely immersive. There are these things happening. There are people down on the ground doing things. There are planes flying over. There's things happening way out there. But you're just inside that room. That's it. And there was
Yeah.
stuff to do in the room. And that wasn't the whole game, but this is just one aspect, because this is like one of these triple A people. But for me, that could be the whole game, right? And
Yeah.
of course, I wasn't doing anything that I was supposed to do. So the guy, who was like running the kiosk, he was like, "What are you doing? You can just stop, because you're not playing the game." I'm like, I can play the game how I want to play it, right? So that's another thing, like, that I've just kind of like, I don't want to say grappling with, but that I don't know the word, like, considering.
Mm-hmm.
I don't interact with games the same way that maybe your typical player may, right? I think, that there's like, you have a demographic of what a player is, right? Usually, like,
Right.
you know, I don't know what the age is. It's usually like a white guy, right? Like in mid 30s, 20s, or whatever. And they're
Yeah.
playing games a certain way based on how we're socialized in the culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys are socialized into playing war games, right? With the guns and stuff like that. This is not something I'm really interested in. I was more interested in the environment, the story, and different kinds of interactions that were there but weren't fully developed. They had me on their
Yeah.
team, it would be fully developed, but
Yeah.
they don't have someone who's thinking like me on their team. So that's another thing that I think I'm coming into the realization, right? Because like I said, I've been playing games for a long time. I never really thought of myself as different from other people who are playing games. But as I've gone into these like environments in these communities, I'm like, wait a minute, my brain is working differently. You guys, I'm
Yeah.
gonna look at the chat in a minute, but I don't have really good eyesight, so I have to
What?
lean forward and take a look and see what you guys are saying in a minute. But so I'm realizing, like, wait a minute, I'm bringing something completely different to the table
Yeah.
in terms of like how I am approaching the play space, right?
And one of the things that I find so interesting with that, and I mean, talk about your missed opportunities, right? Because if the person, instead of saying like you're not playing it right, move along, had been like, you seem
Right,
really interested by different parts of this, like what's going on for you, like that was an amazing opportunity for them to learn about a whole different demographic and mindset of folks who could be interested in their game.
right,
And I think that that's something that's really indicative in the whole industry, and is one of the things that is such a neat gift that you bring, is because so
yeah,
often in the AAA world, at least, it's like, here's the really cool flashy stuff we can do, and we need some story, so let's kind of staple that in there. Whereas where you're coming
mm-hmm.
from is like, what we're creatures of story, so what's the story,
Yeah,
and then what are the things that we need to make that story feel real. And yeah.
right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Let me see what folks are saying, if there are any questions in the chat. Last time I'm sharing, it shows like this. Okay, there are no
No.
questions. Okay,
Yeah. So I've got a
yeah.
question for you.
Sure.
I mean, again, it's amazing. Writing clearly it was a passion from such an early age. I mean, to be doing that professionally at
Mhm.
14, and to have also
Yeah.
had that. It's funny when you describe your early game sort of story. that rings so true for me. So many of those pieces. If you were giving advice to a younger you, or to someone who is in a similar boat where they're in love with story and with narrative, and they're keen on games and feel like they'd be really interested in working in that join sort of space, what advice would you give them about how to get involved?
I would say find people doing what you want to do who are older than you and who are in your same age demographic, those two groups, and begin to play around with them, experiment with them. I think that's the biggest thing, is jumping in, even if you're just there as a support. Because when I first got involved with, when I first started showing up to game jams, I couldn't code at all. Like, I had to try to teach myself JavaScript, and it was just like very difficult for me. I mean, it wasn't difficult. It's just I couldn't. It wasn't in depth, right? Like, it's just different. Like, I really needed a
Yeah.
teacher, and so what I did is that I did have a writing skill set. And so I would show up and I would help them write things, while I was working on my project, right? And so if you have a skill set that's different, that could be writing, it could be drawing, it could be, or being organized, like being a good project manager, right? Bring that to the table. I mean, right now in this day and age, the internet is out there. So you can Google stuff. Use Google. Google's your friend in that case. You can look things up and find information about what it is that you want to do. Read, watch videos, but also do. You need to actually be creating stuff. Even like, I think, because a game is a game is a game is a game. It's a game, right? You can use paper, index cards, like start there, start immediately making games, because those principles can be applied to video games, right? Yeah, that's my advice.
Great. No, that's wonderful. So much for me that I find interesting, and I mean with games generally. I mean, just as a game playing species, who the way we refine our view of the world and our position in it, so much of that is through our play. When people engage with something that you've made or the things that you're wanting to make, what do you want them to come away with? What ideally is shifted for them, or are they interested in exploring?
I think in terms of my games, and really in terms of everything that I create, emotionality is important to me, to leave people with a feeling.
Mm.
Because I think how you make people feel is what they will ultimately remember, because that's like, it's an embodied experience,
Yeah.
And then you can connect that feeling to an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if people can't remember what you said or all the facts that you listed or whatever it was, they can feel the message.
Yeah.
Does that make
That makes,
sense?
yeah,
Yeah.
incredible sense. Yeah.
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 And I actually studied for many years um, the emotional power of words. I actually sat out a course work. There is no course. I mean, I don't, it's just like, it's a long story, but I began to study how words impact you. And I have this whole weird theory about not just the sound of
Mm-hmm.
words, but the shape of letters. That writing is a visual art, but it's just common because people don't think of it that
Right.
way. But these are symbols. And so, like when I look at Carolina here on the screen, that is a symbol. It means something. When you hear the word death, it gives a feeling. It means something. The symbol is a symbol. When you see it written in any language, right, it means something. So I'm very aware of those meanings. And so I try to incorporate that in my work so that I'm communicating on a primal level to other human beings ideas that are important to me. And I think in my work, what I want to do is connect people to reality that they may not have noticed or understood, and possibilities that they may have never imagined. But I want them to feel it.
Yeah.
I don't just want to tell them. I want them to feel it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I want.
I love it. That's so powerful. It's a nice example of the medium and the message combining, because like as you say it, it resonates so deeply. Another question I have for you. I know you've worked in so many different environments with people and lots of different collaborations where you're putting things together. For you, what makes a collaboration joyful? What do you look for in either a project or a team that makes you decide, yeah, those are people who I'd like to do something with?
I think for me, it's not really an intellectual thing. Like it's a vibe. Like, am I clicking with that person, right? Because there's so many human personalities. But I think that almost any personality can fit if that person's spirit and the way they interact with others is respectful and I don't know, like open. And like I also I think it's important to me that people are dutiful. Like if they say they're going to do something, that they keep their word, right? Like that's important to me, right? Like I think creative people who are open to like new experiences, people who are excited about what they're doing, whatever that is, right? To me, being excited about your work, whatever it is. And that's what I really liked about you, is that you just seemed joyful and excited about, and not joyful as in like, oh, I'm so happy, but just like you felt, I could feel that you were passionate about what you were doing and that you were showing up fully to the project that we worked on, Climate Utopia. And I really appreciated that. And you knew your stuff, like you were a professional in your realm, right? And I like that. So that's what I'm looking for. Just a few other things.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. So what are, I've asked a bunch of different questions. What should I have asked? What's something that you would love to maybe talk about that I didn't think about?
I don't know. That's a hard question. I don't know. I just came prepared to answer your question.
Fair enough. That's good enough.
I don't know.
Well, may I ask, maybe you're curious as to the types of projects going on here in Canada and Vancouver, because I mean, at least for me, I'm even curious to the partial differences in culture too when it comes to working in Canada versus the US.
Sure, I would love to hear it.
Like, do you know, Daniel?
So sorry, what's the question, Misha?
Just so Beverly understands, the kind of projects that you guys, I know there isn't much we can say, but even just on a vague level, it would be kind of interesting to share each other's kind of works, and also how we've adapted to working during COVID, and working in different countries, even though we're on the same continent.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. I don't know if I have any good wisdom there, because of course it's one of those things where for me, it's just it's you work with who you work with, and you gravitate towards the people you gravitate towards. And for me, often there are people who are next door, and equally often there are people who are, whether it's folks like you, Beverly, who are in Seattle, folks like Maya, who I know you've worked with as well, who's out in New York. So yeah, I don't know if I have any good wisdom there.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that there seem to be some cultural differences between Canada and the US. Although, we both speak English, and it seems like on the surface that there are a lot of similarities, but
But
I
I would
don't
say
think,
even
I
with the
think that,
governmental support, it can be different too, right?
oh yeah, you guys get governmental support.
Right.
That's interesting.
So how do you
Yeah,
overcome
I mean,
those
there are
challenges?
there are grants here. You can get grants. But it's set up like where you have to apply, and it's set up like a service. So you have to have a public benefit, and you apply and you get a grant. There are some people who have gotten grants for VR development. I haven't applied for any grants for VR development. I have applied for grants for other things, and I have gotten them, so, but mostly it's about, producing something that people will want to pay for.
Yeah.
And that does limit what you can produce, because there are some certain things that don't have a mass appeal. And if you're producing something like VR, even if you're working as a single team, one or two people, right, on a project, and you're doing all that work, that's a lot of labor. Like if you're spending hundreds of hours to develop this VR project, like how are you paying your bills in the meantime?
Yeah.
So I think that there are like a lot of, oh, good to see your face. There are a lot of choices to be made, right? About how you're going to fund your project.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easily funded, right?
Yeah.
And this is another reason why I've thought about, for VR, more, oh, that's so green. More small scale projects that have a powerful impact, but that are easy to develop in terms of the technical side, and that really depend on the content to carry it, right? So, and that's still, in process, and also repurposing content. So if I've been paid for something, and of course I own the rights to that, but then I can repurpose that into a VR environment, right? And further the message of that other project, right?
And can I
So
just
that's
that's awesome. Well, also I'll just add that I think, as we've noticed during the pandemic, that these digital technologies we're utilizing are becoming a little bit more commonplace, especially as a way to communicate with others and network with others. Because of course, as you know, we're still using Zoom as well, but I can still see a near future when maybe hopefully when VR becomes a lot more accessible to people, and people are more comfortable with it in general, in terms of not having to worry about motion sickness or the cost of it all, then that may be also another frontier that hopefully will be better. And then, you know, and the cause and effect of that is that, you know, our industries become more critical too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
rather than entertainment, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, I think it's a matter of getting creative in terms of, and I literally mean for me, like this is where my mind is. It's about getting creative, because the work that we are exposed to now, like if you have an Oculus Quest or a Vive or whatever it is, those VR experiences are so like, they're like AAA 3D games brought to VR, right? We're talking $1 million experiences, and they're great, but they're also limited because they can't take any chances, right? Because they're playing with all this money, and it's expensive, right? So for me, I think there is a space for VR developers to create experiences that are extremely out there, you know, that no AAA anybody would ever touch, you know, but that can be done on a shoestring budget. That's what I'm thinking. Like stuff that people are just like, what in the world, or like, this is so weird, or, you know, or this subject is not really like a very niche subject, right? Like, I don't know, go inside a piece of a grain of rice or something like that. I don't know, just, you know, like off the.
Well, it's funny because another kind of, in terms of media, that's inspired me and kind of really expresses like how I feel about the future is like the movie Ready Player One, where basically it's a dystopian future, but everybody's all in VR now, and it's like they have their own world that they can explore, and they can customize characters and be whoever they want to be, you know. And I see there's certain platforms that are trying to take advantage of that in somewhat positive ways, like alt space or spatial or whatever, right? And just having that ability to communicate as a community.
Yeah, I guess my view on it is that I don't think I would want to do a Ready Player One. Like, I love VR, but I love reality better, right? Like, I wouldn't, like, if my outside world looked like Ready Player One's outside world, I'll be very unhappy about it.
Oh yeah, no,
right?
for sure.
Like, I would be.
I'm in agreement with you on that. I'm in agreement.
But what I see for me, where I personally, I don't know about everyone else, but what I want to do is create experiences that people that help people connect deeper to reality, so that when they take off that headset, now they are ready to go out and do something.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's where I'm going, right, with it. And yeah, that's, and I think, you know, I've played around with a little bit of that, but everything I do has to be scaled up. Like, even Climate Utopia, you know, we worked on that. That had to, I mean, that to finish that takes time, right? Like, it's not something you know, I'm still figuring it out, right? I'm still figuring it out. Like, we had that idea about the balloon, you know, or I had the idea and contacted Daniel about it. I was like, "Do you want to do this with me?" And then I don't know what happened. We both got busy, and it's like sitting on the shelf with so many other experiments. But that also was not, it wasn't the balloon, it was a cloud, I think. There was something about either a cloud. It was a balloon one, okay.
Yeah.
But that's just another experiment, right? And I have a few experiments, but I think the one that's probably going to get made is the one using the outtakes from my interviews with these people that I wrote articles about, because that media is done, you know, and I feel like it can work, right? I just need to know what it, you know, how it's exactly going to look. Yeah, I feel like that's what I want to do. I want people to get in those headsets and then get out of them and get into life.
Okay, well, can I ask one last question with regards to that too? Because another thing that I found always interesting is how some people will make VR experiences just using 360 photos or videos in 2D. And then there's the aspect of creating 3D environments. And do you have, like, a preference of those mediums, or do you like to mix and match them on different projects?
I've used some photos. When we did the project for Rainier Beach Action Coalition, we used stills, we used video, and we used audio, and we used a 3D built environment. And I really liked it. I felt like it really worked for the project. I really think it depends. And I really think what it depends on is this furthering the goal of the project? You know, what is the goal of your project? What is it that you're trying to do? And I also think that it needs to be well done. Like, what is the impact that you're having? How do people feel? Like, do people feel disoriented after they, you know, are in your project? Now, this is a thing I've had to deal with and I've been guilty of. You know, I've created projects and people get in there and they're like, I'm dizzy. And I'm like, oh gosh, you know, because I'm using artificial movement where I'm moving the person, right? Or no, I was using where they were using the stick to move, right? And that was the way that they could move around. And so that was like a mistake on my part, right? But it was because I was trying to do something that I thought was cool, but I didn't really fully consider the impact that it might have on the user. So going forward, I decided that I really needed to simplify stuff like that. And see what other people have done that works. There are VR experiences where you move they don't move themselves with the joystick, but you can move them through the experience and it works. People don't, and I've put people into them and I haven't had, you know, people say that they are motion sick, right? I'm sure some people do get motion sick, or they can walk around themselves. But walking around, the thing with walking, having people walk around in your experiences is that, and I know I'm getting a little bit off here because you asked about still images and stuff, but it matters because if you have 3D objects in your experience, I have found that people want to walk out to them and walk around them. This is just, you know, putting this headset on. So many people, I've probably put this headset on hundreds of people. And I know people want to walk. It's like they want to start walking. So you know, all of this is in flux, right? All of this is like, and I have like some unofficial VR mentors because there are people out there who have like studied this very deeply, and I've had to ask them like, what is the deal with this, and how, you know, what is your advice? And they've given some good advice that just design your environment so that people aren't hurting themselves, right? And that you're having the right impact. And the right impact is the impact that you intend to have. And that is not people walking into a wall. And going back to your question about still images, in some ways, that serves that purpose, right? Those 2D images, like the first time I got into VR, well, not the first time, but I think maybe at Oculus, my first experience on Oculus Quest was this welcome to VR, this welcome to VR experience. And you just would sit down and you were in a chair in the experience, and they were like, welcome to VR. And then they started moving you. And it was at a pace that does not create motion sickness. And you don't have to move, you're just sitting there and things are moving around you, right? And you're moving through the experience, or that's what it feels like. And there's I felt no desire to get up and walk around and run into a wall or something like that in real life. Things were coming at me. There was audio, there was video, there were 3D built objects, there were animated characters, right? There were things coming down from above, things coming up from below, a little helicopter flying around at one point, you know. I think everyone's been in this experience. And I was like, this is amazing. And I feel like there's a lot to learn in that experience, right? There's like, you could just take this experience and just break it down scene by scene. Like you can use these elements in your VR experience, because every single last person that I put into that headset, into that experience, loved it.
Yeah.
They loved it. And I have put a lot of people into that experience, and I have never had a person say they didn't like it.
And it's funny, it ties right back to what, you know, when we were talking about the piece that you wrote about the fountain, and it's that piece about think small, like think big, but think small. Mm-hmm. And there's the little details that just make that work. Yeah. Beverly, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It's such a pleasure, and it's always a delight to hear what you're up to and what you're thinking about, and really neat to hear a bit more of how you got to where you are.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. It was great talking to you guys, and these were some great questions. Oh, someone has a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Carolina.
Carolina, sorry. Sure, you can ask a question, Carolina.
Oh, 1 second. Go ahead, Carolina.
Now can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now you can see me. I have just a quick question. Okay, I don't know if it's quick or not, but at one point you said that you started realizing that you were like thinking like differently, you know, like in. And I have been like wondering if you feel that is something that you were born with, or is something that you developed in a certain way.
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
I don't know. Like, you know, well, I will say this. I believe that people are born blank slates, right? That obviously there's genetics there, you know, and I don't know, but I'm not a geneticist, so I can't really speak too deeply about that. I know that genetics is responsible for our eye color and all the physical things about us, and maybe in part our personality, I don't know. But so I'm gonna say I'm leaning towards the fact that my socialization is responsible for the way I think. I'll give you an example. I wasn't allowed to play games endlessly, right? Like now I can't, people are like, oh, I become addicted to games. I'm not addicted to games. I just play and I stop, right? Like, it's like, I can literally sit down and play a game for 15 minutes and get up, and there's no feeling, there's no resistance, because I was socialized to relate to games in that way, right? So, you know, so I'm thinking that it's probably just the way that I was socialized, the family I grew up in, the community that I grew up in. I mean, I think that demographically, you know, culturally, you know, my gender, the generation I'm part of, like all these different demographic areas are different than the typical gamer. So that also has an impact. I grew up on the south side of Chicago in a majority Black community. My family's Black, I grew up, in America. I have one immigrant father. I have an immigrant father. My father's from Jamaica. My mother's from America. Like all these things impact who I am and how I see the world. How they combined and make that impact, I'm not 100% sure.
All right, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And again,
Thank you for your question.
This has been it's been fantastic, and definitely let's talk soon. I feel like there's a lot of great
yes
bits for us to cover.
Absolutely, we have to connect for sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.